Okay, I'm going to go through the process to make cake pops. This is actually banana cake that I made yesterday. So it's pretty fresh and nice and light. My hands are clean, been washed. I'm using the paddle attachment. And I'm just going to let that go until it's like a very fine crumb. And when your cake is really fresh, you don't need as much binding because it's got a lot of moisture in it. And I can kind of tell it's what's going to happen this time. But you want it fine crumbs. And that's not quite there yet. And then pick it. What you don't want to do is have any lumps or bumps, because when you roll it, it'll be a bumpy ball. Okay. And what I'm going to do, this is actually going to be a banana split cake pops. So I am adding maraschino cherries that I used my little food processor for, and I drained it, and I'm adding that. So because there's a lot of liquid in that, it'll probably take less binder. Binder meaning icing. And for the icing, I will use either my homemade icing, or if I don't have any left over from a recent project, then I will get the canned icing. And that I'm going to put in very slowly. But first I'm going to mix this up and see what it gives me. See if I need more cherry or not. That's actually a good amount. And what I'm going for is a consistency of Play-Doh without any dry spots. And I don't know if you can see that, but there's some dry spots in there. So I'm going to put a little bit of the icing in there. That was about a tablespoon. And every cake or every recipe that you do may be a little bit different depending upon the texture of the cake. Some are much more moist than others. And if you get it too wet, then when you go to roll it, it's going to fall off the stick. So you got to get it just right. And what you're looking for is Play-Doh consistency. So that's pretty close. But I need to mix it more. So, but that's pretty close. I'm going to put just a little bit more binder in it. Maybe even half a tablespoon this time. And let it mix. See how that goes. It can all kind of stick together like cookie dough does. Different people do their dough different ways. Some people I used to use a food processor. Then I just started using KitchenAid because it was easier. Some people just do it by hand with a fork or whatever and break it up into pieces. So you just figure out what works best for you. This works great for me. Okay, so there it is. So as I scrunch this into a ball, it's going to hold its shape, and it's about like Play-Doh consistency. So I think we got a winner there. And it's just about the right amount of maraschino cherries for what I'm going to do. I am also going to put mini chocolate chips in it, and that's coming up right. Okay, so now I'm going to add some mini chocolate chips, and I do the mini ones just because they'll blend in smaller, because when you're rolling these pops, you're going to get little bumps. So that goes last. If you put it in too early, it breaks down. Let's see what we got. I would say we don't have enough. And you can never have too much chocolate. So this is banana cake with maraschino cherries and then chocolate chips in it to make all the nice. Let's see. Oh yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Okay, so next thing we do is roll it out and put stick. Okay, getting ready for the next step in the cake pops. So I took my silicone bowl, which you can use glass, it just gets very hot. You can use a lot of different things. I use silicone because it's easy to touch and I don't have to worry about burning myself. I melt it in the microwave for 30 seconds and go back and check. I know this holds over a pound of chocolate, so it normally takes a minute and 45 seconds before I can even stir it, and then I put it on for some more. But I will check it every 30 seconds until it's done. And this is what it should look like, nice and smooth, and it just drips off of the fork. Not clumpy. You know, you can give it a good stir to make sure that it's not clumpy, but it should be very easy to stir. I'm using almond bark here because it works well with me for the cake pops. I'm using 6-inch sticks, and I got them off of Amazon. There's other places to get them, and my favorite stick dealer went out of business, so I'm on Amazon right now until I find a new place. But the price on Amazon isn't bad, so I got the sticks. And I'm going to use cookie cutter, which is just a mini cookie cutter. You can use the cookie cutters that you already have. I'm also going to use some of the cake pop molds from my little cake pop. It makes a very nice flat disc for printing with Eddie. The only problem I have with it is it takes a lot more time because you have to do each one individually. What I'm going to do today is roll out my cake pop dough and do it all at one time, and we're going to do one with this little star. So I'm using my Joseph's rolling pin, and you can change the dowels on it for different thicknesses. This one is 3/8, and that works pretty good. I'd actually like to go a little bit bigger, like 1/2 inch, but it's not one of my options with it. So I made my cake pop dough yesterday. I let it sit in the refrigerator overnight, and that just helps all the flavors get incorporated and all that good stuff. If you don't have a Joseph's rolling pin or another rolling pin that actually helps you get it consistently the right height, some people use dowels and they just put it on the side at the right height, so you can just cut a piece of wood that's 4/8 thick or 3/8 thick and then roll with that. But my rolling pin will do the same thing. So I'm going to roll it. And it very much has the consistency of cookie dough. Play-Doh, you know, it's very much that one. Now this one in particular, this cake pop that I'm doing today, like I said, has chocolate chips, and because of the chocolate chips, it has maraschino cherries in it too, it will not be 100% flat like if you have a recipe without anything in it, but that's okay. So there I go. It's all nice and flat. With this particular cookie cutter, I can use this side or I could use the other side. I'm going to use this side. And I'm just going to cut them out. I'll do a few of each so you can see it. Hands are clean. Just washed them. You can wear gloves if you like. I have to find the right gloves because I have a hard time with gloves. Okay, so I'll show you how to use the mold if you would prefer to use the mold. If you prefer to use the mold, I usually use a scooper, and I just know by scooping it how much it takes in there. And I usually will roll it quickly. And again, use your gloves if you want. This is for demonstration purposes only for the first few, and then I'm going to work on it on my own. And then you close it up. I mean, I might not have put enough in there. You want a little bit on the sides to come out, and it gives you a nice flat. So that's nice too. I do like the mold. I just wish they'd make them in multi so I don't have to do them one by one. That's it. I'll do one more with the other mold just so that we have a couple to compare. It's just a lot more work with the mold, but the results are good. And they have molds for Christmas trees, snowman, all sorts of cool things. And then I usually take a stick and just go around the edge. And that gets the best results for this. Okay, one of the things that people get a lot of is cracking of their cake pops. And you're gonna get a lot of different people that have different advice for that. The biggest thing I found in my making of cake pops is that if your dough is really cold and your chocolate is very hot, it's going to crack. So you want to try to keep them both at the same temperature. Okay, so now I'm going to insert sticks. So I'm just dipping my stick in the chocolate. And then I actually, if I don't have to have all this camera equipment, I don't even have to pick it up. I just insert it laying down. Let's see if I can do it this way. And that's helping it to stay flat too when you're laying it down. When I roll cake pops into balls, I roll them and then I put them in my cake pop stand, which is right here, to dry. But when I'm doing these for printing, I usually lay them flat. And then what we're waiting for is we're going to wait for it to just, this chocolate to dry on these cake pops, on the sticks inside for a couple minutes. And then we can dip it. The word. Okay, got one more to do. So when some people who have never eaten cake pops will say, it's raw dough. It's not. It's a cake that's been broken down, and then it's been dipped in chocolate, but it's fully cooked, and then icing added. All right, I'm gonna let that dry. Okay, now we're gonna dip it in chocolate. So again, since we're printing, I'm gonna print on white chocolate. But then I usually do some in regular chocolate too, because people love that. And so some are printed, some aren't. So I'm gonna pick it up, and it's all nice and pretty. And it's on the stick. Melted chocolate, and then I tap it just very, very lightly to get it smooth. Some people will do this. Some people will take a spoon or another utensil, a knife or something, and they'll just bang it on here to get the excess off. You just have to find out what works for you and your hands. But I usually do it on the side. And sometimes it drips off if you've got too much, but I don't want it too thin. So there's a cake pop, nice and flat for printing. And I'll put that in my cake pop stand. And I'll do another one. And then I'm twirling it and tapping it just ever so lightly. And again, this is almond bark. It melts really, really nice. The candy melts for me are a no-go. I just don't have good luck with them. Some people do. You can thin them with coconut oil, vegetable oil, the crystals, and I just prefer not to do that, but you can do that, and it does work. Okay, so those two came from the mold, and this one came from the cookie cutter. Okay, so these have already dried, and you can see because they are the chocolate chip and maraschino in there, that it's not a really complete, it's got a little bumps in it. So for me, and some people that's okay, but for me, I don't like it. So when I get something that's uneven, and that just happens with the recipe, you know what it is you're making. Sometimes I make chocolate chip cookie dough pops, and these are banana split because it's made with the banana cake. And again, I just dip it, and then I'm just lightly tapping, and it gives it a much smoother appearance. That also makes it bigger, so that when you print, it's bigger. So I'm gonna double dip some of these, not all of them, but some of them. I'm just tapping lightly. You could do the other method here. I didn't like that because it hurts. This one you can kind of see, like if I was doing chocolate cake pops and dipping it in white because I wanted to print on it, then you'd be able to see the color through it. So those I always double dip. I mean, you can kind of see the maraschino cherry, the red at the top of that. So that guy will get a second dip too, even though his plenty flat. And like I said, this is bark that I'm using. You can get it at Aldi's, you can get it anywhere, any grocery store has it. This is the Aldi's brand, and this one is the Walmart brand. I like them both. But you can also get like the Ghirardelli melts and all sorts of other ones. Stover's has a great one too, that sometimes I get. Sometimes there's, like if you want really white for bride ones, there's different ones you can get. So that's nice and smooth after a second dip. And I'm just putting them here on the stand to dry, and I'll show you the stand here. You can see that. And if you wanted to know where the stand comes from, my husband makes it. Okay, so then here's the chocolate. And I don't know if you can notice, but it's much, not much, but it is thinner than the white chocolate. It just flows a lot easier, so it's easier to work with. I guess it's because of the ingredients that are in white chocolate. But if you want to print, you got to do white, so that's what we work with. All right, so there's one. And I cover up all the way down to the bottom of the stick, and then just lightly tap. And if you tap too hard, it's going to try to fall off the stick on you. So I'm just trying to be very gentle. And this is very fragile dough, only because I've got chocolate chips in there, which make it not be flat. So I'm dipping and tapping lightly. And what I'll do after everything dries, if it drips down on the sides of the stick, I just take a knife and clean it up after everything is dried. And then if I'm going to print on them the same day, which you can because a couple minutes later, these are going to be dry. But I like to get what I call a hard set on my chocolate. And I just put the whole thing into the refrigerator and let it sit just for 10 minutes until it has a nice hard set. And you can kind of hear it in the chocolate. And then I print on it. And in order to print on them, you're going to wipe the shine off first. And then I use the new Sassy trays for cake pops to print, which I love. You can print 2 at a time, do a whole carousel. So you can do a dozen in one carousel rotation. So these go really pretty fast. And that's one of the things that I like about doing cake pops. I can do 100 of them in no time. Whereas 100 cookies, when I do that, that's an effort. These go fast. And just to give you an idea, this was 2 6-inch cakes. And this one's kind of floppy. I'm trying to be careful not to lose them. I did 2 6-inch cakes and then mixed my ingredients in, and it made 30 pops. So I don't know if that helps you or not. In a regular 9x11 cake, I can get anywhere, usually about 40 pops if I'm not doing them this way. If I'm rolling them into balls, they're smaller than this. But that's okay, because I want the bigger surface to actually print on with Eddie. Okay, so I'm going to do just a couple more of these, and then I'm going to dip. Actually, I'll do it now so you can see, and then I'll turn the camera off. I'm going to dip these in chocolate. And one has a tiny little bubble. I don't know if you can see it right there. So I'm going to pop that bubble, and then we're just going to shake it a minute. And that's it. Put this guy up here. I always talk to my cake pops and tell them, don't touch each other. Sit there and behave. Don't touch. No fighting. The chocolate actually goes on a lot easier. But we can't print on them. You could do the gold method on them. Maybe. Okay. So I don't know if you can actually see that. Here you go. Okay, so I have double dipped most of the white ones. Those are the chocolate ones. I did not double dip them. And then some people, rather than putting them in stands and just for whatever reason, they like laying them down flat. So just for grins and giggles, I did 4 that way. So I tapped off the excess just like normal, and I laid them out here, and I will show you as soon as they dry. I'll pick them up and you can see the difference in them, and you can pick which way. Both of them work. It's just a matter of appearance. Okay, so these should be dry, and you can see they have a nice flat surface, but instead of putting in the stands to dry like this, and you'll see what the backs look like. I always pick the flattest side to print on. And on these, they do look different. I don't think it's different bad, but it's different. So whichever method works better for you. It's not a bad way to go. And it might be easier if you're just starting to do it that way. And like I said, I double dip these just because of the colors and the chocolate chips. So when you're doing regular dough, that like chocolate or vanilla that doesn't have any ingredients in it to make it lumpy, it's a little easier too. Okay, so we're using the Sassy tray to print, and when they send it to you, they send you all the instructions, so I'm not going to go over all of that, but I have 2 images. That's template 1, that's template 2, and then I'm going to print as a graphic best. I'm going to actually bump this to 90, and let's see what happens. You have to turn your picture upside down because of the way the sticks are going in. So nice.